An injunction filed to prevent Barbudans voting on the sister isle in upcoming elections. That's our top story in Caribbean Newsline for Tuesday, February 27th. From the CMC News Center in Bridgetown, I'm Nicole Best. Good evening. The Barbuda People's Movement, the BPM, has filed an injunction to prevent the Antigua and Barbuda Electoral Commission from moving forward with plans to have residents of the sister isle cast their ballots in Antigua in the March 21st poll. The injunction was filed in the High Court on Tuesday by BPM attorney Charlesworth Tabor. The aim of the injunction is to get all preparations for Barbuda polling to be put on hold until the matter can be heard by a judge. The decision that Barbudans would vote on the mainland was announced by Commission Chairman Nathaniel Paddy James last week. But the BPM's political leader Trevor Walker told CMC News that the law does not give the Electoral Commission the right to move voting for Barbudans.
We feel that that decision was concocted, and I make no apologies with that. I have met persons on the road in Antigua saying, oh, we're going to win the polls because you all have to vote here and there's more control of the main Antigua Labour Party and influence with them on the Barbudans. So we feel it's concocted, and we're of the view that the law does not give them that right to move the poll over here. We're of the view that Section 35 of the Representation of the People Act clearly states that the only way that can be done is if there are special circumstances that exist.
Walker maintains that there are no extenuating circumstances in Barbuda and most Barbudans do not want to go over to Antigua to vote.
99% of the Barbudans are saying they do not want to come over here to vote, because they saying to me, then they removed us forcefully from Barbuda. Then they say we're squatters, we don't own the land. Now we have to come over here to vote. So they say, what next? And when you want to go to the toilet, they're going to say you have to go to Antigua. I mean, so Barbudans are not very happy with that.
Meantime, leader of the Antigua and Barbuda's main opposition United Progressive Party, the UPP, says the early poll has come as no surprise to his party and is ready for battle. In an interview with CMC's Anika Kentish, Howell Lavelle said candidates have already been hitting the ground in their constituencies. He said the UPP's manifesto is almost ready and party paraphernalia has been taken care of.
You can expect to see a full-blown campaign. We have already planned our rallies. Our paraphernalia is in place. Our manifesto is almost ready. Our candidates are named and are working in the various constituencies. Our billboards will be up. Our posters will be put up. So we're just waiting for the bell, and we're ready to roll.
Earlier in the year, a simulated poll was conducted to determine which of the two major parties was more popular among the electorate. The UPP got 15 votes, while the ruling Antigua and Barbuda Labour Party got 1. Lavelle says that's an indication that the electorate is looking for change.
Now, even if that poll is an exaggeration of what the reality is, the fact is it shows that this is a very competitive race, and that even if we don't win all 15, even if that is partially correct, it shows that on the ground, the United Progressive Party is solid and is strong.
The UPP will hold a mass rally on Sunday to officially present its candidates. Barbados' Chief Justice Sir Marston Gibson has ruled that Commonwealth citizens who meet the requirements under the Representation of the People Act have a right to vote in the island. He made that declaration in a case in which 4 CARICOM nationals living in Barbados for more than a decade had challenged their exclusion from the voters list. St. Lucian-born academic Professor Eddie Ventus, Grenadian Shireen Mathlin Tulloch, Jamaican Michelle Russell and Montserratian Sharon Edgecombe Miller wanted their names on the list in time for the next general election constitutionally due later this year. The Electoral and Boundaries Commission, the ABC, said they could not because they did not have permanent residency, immigrant status or citizenship. But in his ruling yesterday, Chief Justice pointed out that the Representation of the People's Act states that the only requirements for a Commonwealth citizen to vote in Barbados were for that person to be a resident for 3 years and live in the constituency in which they want to vote for 3 months. The Chief Justice ordered that Ventos, who had filed a separate suit from the other 3, should be registered with dispatch as he had met all the requirements. The other applicants met all the requirements but did not file the necessary application forms at the Electoral Office. Attorney Greg Nichols, who represents Russell and Edgecombe Miller, said they would file the necessary applications at the EBC. Over in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, a High Court judge on Tuesday dismissed an application made by an opposition candidate to examine ballot boxes used in the Central Leeward constituency in the 2015 general elections. Justice Esco Henry said the application by Ben Exter was similar to one another judge, Justice Brian Cottle, had dismissed in 2015 and was therefore an abuse of the court process. The judge said that although the second application had information not contained in the first motion, Exter had that evidence when the first motion was filed. She suggested that the petitioner could have appealed Cottle's decision, which had been handed down a day or two before the expiration of the time stipulated by the law for the filing of election petitions. Justice Henry ordered Exter to pay costs to the respondents in his application. The presiding officer, the Deputy Prime Minister and Member of Parliament for Central Leeward, and the Supervisor of Elections. Over in Grenada, the ruling New National Party, the NNP, has denied allegations that it is chartering at least 3 planes to bring people from the United States to vote in the March 13th general election. NNP campaign manager Roland Bowler says the claims are absolutely untrue, but he says Grenadians in different parts of the diaspora who are registered as electors have been seeking to confirm if they are qualified to vote. Bowler also acknowledged that the NNP has support groups in New York, Canada and the United Kingdom. Leader of the main opposition National Democratic Congress, Nazim Burke, last weekend warned of possible electoral fraud, saying that he had been reliably informed that people were being brought into Grenada from the United States to cast ballots. Meanwhile, the Office of the Parliamentary Election Office said the law is clear on who is allowed to cast ballots in a general election. The final list of electors contains 78,221 names. In other news, ExxonMobil has made another major oil find offshore Guyana. Minister of Natural Resources Raphael Trotman made the announcement following Tuesday's cabinet meeting. As he gave an update on Guyana's oil exploration efforts, he said the latest find was in the Pacora-1 well in the Starbrook block.
More details of this latest discovery, which has occurred within the last 48 hours, will be shared with the nation as we continue to have an aggressive program of exploration and, of course, as we proceed towards production in 2020. So to date, we have overseen the drilling of 7 wells by Exxon, 6 of which have borne fruit in that they have proven good. 1 has not, but we have so far an excellent record, and I'd like to congratulate the crew of the Stena Carron, which has been the ship that has done 90% of the discoveries without a day loss or any injury or any man-hours lost, and that is commendable. And of course, it has been done in a very efficient way.
Still to come in Caribbean Newsline, a judge in Trinidad and Tobago orders the state to pay the only woman who was detained during a probe into an alleged terror plot to disrupt Carnival. The details of that story and more after the break.
In a place where legends start, the beach is just the beginning. So live a little for the exhilaration and the colour of every moment, where time is and life is a spirited event. Immerse yourself in the culture, the music, the people, the island. Love Antigua and Barbuda. Embrace an experience that leaves you breathless, from cricket to sailing week to carnival and more. Antigua and Barbuda, the beach is just the beginning.
Well, there are a number of things that I do, and it depends to some degree on what the case is.
Yeah.
And so I don't follow the same scripted format in talking to a jury. Mm-hmm. What you're really talking about, Steve, is the voir dire process, right, where lawyers are given an opportunity to talk to jurors and then later on deselect jurors, if you will.
Yes.
Continuing in Trinidad and Tobago, the state will have to pay a woman who was detained earlier this month in connection with an alleged terror plot to disrupt Carnival. And that's because High Court Judge Frank C. Prasad has ruled that the police failed to justify holding the woman for almost 6 days. The ruling was handed down on Monday. We get the details from Mark Bassant of TV6 News.
Alicia Thomas, the lone woman who was rounded up by police and detained for questioning over an alleged terror plot to disrupt Carnival activities, scored a minor victory today after High Court Judge Frank C. Prasad ordered the state to pay her legal cost of $6,100 in relation to the filing of a writ of habeas corpus earlier this month after she was made to spend 6 days in police custody. Justice Frank C. Prasad, in delivering his ruling, said while there was need for law enforcement officers to carefully examine whatever information they may unearth over such activities, it must be done in such a way as to protect the constitutional rights of those taken in for questioning. C. Prasad delivered his oral ruling in favor of Thomas, who has since been charged alongside her husband Adil Mansano for possession of a firearm component and taken before a Port of Spain magistrate. Thomas, who's pregnant, has been granted bail while Mansano remains in prison custody. Before the ruling in the Hall of Justice today, Thomas's attorney Mario Merritt submitted that the officers acted unreasonably by keeping Thomas for such a lengthy period of time, only to lay the firearm-related charge hours after a habeas corpus writ was filed. Merritt, who appeared together with attorney Kirby Joseph, said the police commissioner's office even failed to respond to a pre-action protocol letter that was issued to it. He pointed out that if investigators felt the need to further detain his client after a 48-hour period had passed, then they were required to make an application to do so before a High Court judge. But Justice C. Prasad questioned some of the attorney's submissions, saying the 48-hour time limit was not set in stone and was only to be used as a gauge by the court in determining whether someone's constitutional rights were being violated by being kept in custody for a period that was longer than required. He noted that the time frame for keeping an individual in custody would vary given the particular circumstances. He said the threat that terrorist activities posed to this country was not one that was trivial, and that all information that was unearthed must be thoroughly investigated. C. Prasad, however, agreed that the state should be made to pay part of Thomas's legal fees. C. Prasad said he also could not understand why Thomas had only been charged after 6 days in custody, even though the firearm component was allegedly found in her and her husband's home on the day of her arrest.
The United States Deputy Secretary of State has postponed a visit to Haiti, where he was to hold talks with CARICOM leaders at the 29th Intersessional Summit. The State Department said John J. Sullivan's trip has been put off, but it did not say why. Sullivan was expected to talk with the regional leaders about issues of mutual interest to the United States and the Caribbean, including energy diversification, regional security, and economic development. He was also due to have engaged with the U.S. Embassy staff as well as representatives from the business community and civil society, and he had to make a visit to the Haitian National Police School, which receives funding from the Bureau of International Narcotics and Law Enforcement. CARICOM Secretary General Erwin Larocque is warning regional leaders of the threats that crime and violence pose to a viable and prosperous community, and he says there needs to be a regional solution to the problem. Speaking at the 29th Intersessional Summit in Haiti, Larocque said crime and violence do not provide a pathway to success. He noted that 5 years ago in Port-au-Prince, regional leaders adopted the CARICOM crime and security strategy, but he says the time may have come to revisit that and identify the areas in need of improvement in order to make it more effective.
Last July, several member states signed the CARICOM Arrest Warrant Treaty, which simplifies the procedure of returning fugitives to the country where charges have been laid. The treaty being ratified as soon as possible. We are close to finalizing the agreement on the return of sharing of recovered assets. This provides a framework for the return or sharing of criminal assets which have been moved to another jurisdiction. I had hoped that the negotiations would have been completed to enable signature at this meeting. I now expect that it will be ready for a meeting in July. These are important legal instruments which are significant additions to our armory against transborder crime. We have also been working on a counterterrorism strategy. For us in CARICOM, an act of terrorism or violent extremism in one member state will resonate and have repercussions throughout our entire region. The issue on crime and violence is a regional problem that demands a regional solution. It requires the full cooperation of all the national and regional agencies charged with the responsibility for addressing crime and security.
And ahead in Newsline Sport, the West Indies captain hopes the ICC World Cup qualifiers will give his players the momentum they need for another World Cup victory. Stay with us. Sport is next.
Okay, so just flour your surface. So now that the oil is hot, I cut my dough into small pieces.
Ms. Mackenzie. She claims that Ms. Williams owes her babysitting money in cash because she was paid with a Family First card for her services. This is the defendant, Ms. Williams. She says money is money, and they had no agreement for payment, as she thought the babysitting services were being done as a favor. This is the case of all money is not good.
On the outskirts of Houston, I visited the Altruist Relief Kitchen, another traveling group that provides basic necessities to people in emergency situations. Lucid, tell us about the community, how you guys got together, and why you're here in Houston.
So Altruist Relief Kitchen is a grassroots field kitchen providing emergency free hot meals to the people affected by the hurricane. So we're kind of responding to this environmental chaos that's being put forth by these terrible policies.
West Indies captain Jason Holder believes the ICC World Cup qualifiers will provide precious momentum for West Indies as they take aim at a third World Cup triumph in England next year. The two-time former champions have been forced to go through the May 4th to 25th qualifiers in order to reach the World Cup, after finishing outside the top 8 in the ICC one-day ranking by the qualification cut-off date of September 30th last year. And Holder says that apart from qualifying for the showpiece, West Indies were also keen on winning the event and adding a third title to their collection.
Everybody understands the importance of a World Cup and being in a World Cup. You know, we've obviously won the World Cup on 2 occasions, and I think we're trying to formulate our plans in terms of getting a third. You know, we've done well in T20 cricket. You know, we've done well in women's cricket, under 19 cricket. So I think it's about time now we win another World Cup in the ODI format.
But the team's first challenge will be to navigate their way through Group A of the qualifiers as they come up against ICC World Cricket League Division 2 champion United Arab Emirates, Papua New Guinea, Ireland and the Netherlands. Their one-day form over the last year has been wretched, with them winning just 3 of 23 matches, and Holder said the qualifying tournament presented the opportunity to find some consistency.
You know, over the last few years we probably haven't played the cricket we would have liked to play. You know, having said that, as I said before, all the guys are motivated and we know what's at stake. I see it as an opportunity, and it's an opportunity for us to grab some momentum heading into next year's World Cup. You know, get some games under our belt, you know, just to finalise some combinations, you know, get things right and hopefully turn our cricket around in terms of the ODI format. You know, it's probably one of our weaker formats, and you know, no doubt that we've been inconsistent. Obviously it's something that we've addressed, and I think going forward, you know, hopefully we should see some good performances.
Holder assured that regardless of the opposition, West Indies would be taking a professional approach to the campaign.
See, every game is a very important game. You know, we've got to be professional. I don't want to stress too much on the opposition. I'm more so focused on the cricket we want to play. I think once we cover all 3 departments and be consistent in all 3 departments, and more often than not, we'll get the results we're looking for. I think when you look down at our lineup, you know, we've got a well-balanced side, a quality side mixed with youth and experience. So hopefully we can gel together and make things happen here in this tournament and, you know, build some momentum going forward in the year.
Meanwhile, Baton legend Brian Lara believes two-time former ICC World Cup champions West Indies have no choice but to qualify for the showpiece in England next year. The Caribbean side won the first two World Cups in 1975 and 1979 under iconic captain Clive Lloyd, and also reached the final of the 1983 edition before losing to India. Lara, who led the Windies at the 1999 and 2007 editions, said their prestigious history in the competition underlined the urgency to qualify. Lara told the Melbourne Age on Monday, and I quote, "We have a very good record in the Championships trophy and we didn't have the opportunity to play last year. The World Cup is a different story, obviously. It is something much more important. History in that particular tournament is very strong, especially in the early part of it, the first 3 or 4 World Cups. It's a situation where I think the boys have no choice. We have to pull it through. That's the ICC rankings is set up in such a way that we were out of that place automatic qualification, so we have to qualify. But it doesn't mean we can't get there. We have to get there." End of quote. Windies will open their qualification campaign on March 6th when they face United Arab Emirates in Group A. The top 3 from each group in the qualifiers will advance to the Super Sixes, where each team will play their matches against sides they did not meet in the preliminaries. Close to $1 million TT was raised in last year's hurricane relief cricket match between TNT Red Force and the Caribbean 11 squad. And this was announced by TT Cricket Board member Baldath Mahabir at a handing over ceremony on Monday. Last year, Dominica suffered widespread devastation and the loss of 15 lives when Hurricane Maria slammed into the island as a Category 5 cyclone. Only 2 weeks earlier, Hurricane Irma struck Barbuda, leaving the tiny island uninhabitable. Mahabir says money will be distributed in 4 areas.
We have identified together 4 major areas of assistance. A share of the money raised to the people of Barbuda via the United Way network in that country. This could be in cash or materials, etc. 2, the rest of the monies or goods to the value of those monies where applicable to the people of Dominica to include the following. 1, the equivalent of $10,000 in building materials and related items to Botanic Gardens Cricket Pavilion. This was agreed upon as a cricket-specific request made to us by the Chair of Windward Islands Cricket and CWI Vice President, Mr. Emmanuel Nanton. And here I want to remind you of that special plea made by West Indies selector Lockhart Sebastian at our launch. And we decided that we will do something cricket-specific. The second thing we discussed was some aspects of training for the citizens of Dominica in basic building trades, carpentry, masonry, etc. And Jennifer, this morning I spoke to Tricon, and they would be willing to come on board in terms of plumbing to have someone, whenever the training is done.
Switching sports, Jamaica's bobsled media lays on its rubbishing claims made by Bobsled Federation President Christian Stokes that all was well in the camp when the team went to the recently concluded Winter Games in Pyeongchang, South Korea. Stokes gave the assurance to local media when driver Sandra Kirisas resigned after she was asked to transition from driver coach to performance analyst. But in this report, media officer Kathleen Polito gave a different version and tells of how fractured the relationship between Federation and the bobsled team has become.
There is always multiple sides to a story. And while Jamaica Bobsled Association President Christian Stokes provided one, media personnel Kathleen Polito seems to have another. When news surfaced about a rift between then driving coach Sandra Kiriasis and the Federation over her role, Stokes affirmed on February 14 that all was well in the camp.
Jasmine has a very good relationship with a number of people. They have been friends, but she's very close to Dudley Stokes and she has a lot of support from her teammates. So she'll be fine. As a matter of fact, she's more focused. She is in a much better mood. Since we have refocused the coaching efforts. So all in all, it's been a positive outcome for her.
But fast forward to February 25, and Polito painted a different picture of the Jamaican camp.
The trust that was broken. There's, as a driving coach, she built relationships with the girls, and just to go through that turmoil and watch someone, report false things, it was very, very difficult. They become part of your family, and then you know, to have that happen to us in the way that it happened, it was certainly heartbreaking. It was horrible to watch.
Polito also explained the uncertainty the team encountered after Curiasis claimed responsibility for the sled, which left the team weighing their options.
We always knew we were going to end up with a sled, regardless. We were going to be on the start line. We didn't know for sure. It was dicey at times. We didn't know what sled, but we knew, you know, one of our good friends, Canada, offered to give us a sled if we needed it. And, you know, we always knew, but...
And after beer company Heineken, through their brand Red Stripe, purchased the sled for the team, their performance was hampered by a faulty brake system. This has led to Polito pleading for more support.
We need a sled mechanic. Now that we have a sled, we need a mechanic. Every other team is traveling with a mechanic. And our first race, we didn't notice, but the brake was dragging. Yes. And we were trying to figure out why her times, you know, started to decrease as they should increase as you go down the hill. And we didn't find that issue until the last race. And it was unfortunate because it would have saved us.
Jamaica will now turn their attention to qualification for the 2022 Beijing Winter Olympic Games.
That's the sport. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Again, the major developments of this day: the Barbuda People's Movement files an injunction to prevent the Electoral Commission from moving forward with plans to have residents of the Sister Isle cast their ballots in Antigua next month. And in sport, West Indies captain Jason Holder believes the ICC World Cup qualifiers will provide precious momentum for West Indies as they take aim at a third World Cup triumph in England next year. And that's Caribbean Newsline. For news and sport around the clock, log on to KanaNews.com. We'll be back here again tomorrow. But from all of us at CMC News, thank you for watching and do have yourselves a good night.